So for part 2 of my frozen cupcakes, I'm going to be making Sven and Olaf royal icing transfers. And these you could just place on top of any cupcake. So to start, I just rough sketched a template, and this I'm just using as a guide, so when I place it underneath the wax paper, I can just kind of color it in with the royal icing. So I'm just using this wax paper on a baking sheet to have a nice smooth surface, and I'm just coloring in, starting with Olaf's mouth. So once again, I'm just using a Ziplock bag with a hole cut in the corner to pipe with, but you can use an actual piping bag, and a number 1 tip to make this easier. Sorry, my hand's in the way, I'll find a better way to film next time. Here I'm just using a toothpick to pop any air bubbles and just kind of fill in the spaces that I couldn't get to with my piping bag. Just as a note, when you are using royal icing, you have to let each section dry for quite a long time, almost 4 hours, so just give yourself a long time to do this project. Now I'm just going to fill in these 2 discs, where I'm just going to have one with a snowflake on top and the other with Olaf's body, the bottom half. So I'm just using a light blue icing in flat consistency and just filling this in. This is probably going to take the longest to dry, so I would suggest doing this first. I let this dry overnight. Now I'm just taking white icing while it's still wet and making some snowflakes. And again, this is royal icing. Now I'm just filling in Sven's eyes with a little bit of white royal icing and a toothpick to just fill in the shape. Now I'm going to let all of this dry until I go on to the next part. Now I'm filling Olaf's face in with white royal icing. You could just go right over his eyes because you're going to refill those in later to make it a little more 3D. Now I'm going in again with a toothpick to get in any spaces that I missed and get rid of any air bubbles. You can also use a Scribe tool for this. Now using a tan color, I am going in to Sven's face to color that in. And for Sven's face, I kind of just blended in a bunch of different colors to make it look more like fur. So I used brown, tan, and white icing to get this effect. And here I'm just using a toothpick to kind of blend all those colors together. Since he is furry, you don't want any harsh lines. After letting that dry, I added Olaf's nose and let that dry as well. And now I'm adding Sven's nostrils and the back side of his body. So to do the back side of his body, I'm just drawing some white stripes here with royal icing, and now I'm going to go in with some tan royal icing and draw stripes as well. Then I'm just going to blend that all together to get a furry kind of look. It's almost similar to painting, but you just have to make sure everything is super thick, so when you pull it off of the wax paper, it pulls off in one piece. Here I'm making Sven's legs, but later on you'll see that this should probably be left to later because they do break easily, so I would suggest leaving this till later on. Now for the back side of his body, I'm just using a solid brown color and just blending it into the lighter color with a toothpick. As I said before, I filled in Olaf's eyes again just to get a little 3D pop to them. And now I'm drawing the bottom part of his body onto that blue disc because it's completely dry. So to do that, I'm just kind of freehanding 2 circles to make the bottom of a snowman. Now I'm going in with brown icing to make his arms, and I'm going to also swirl in a little white icing into the arms to make it look like there's snow on them. So I'm just shaping his arms with a toothpick. And next you'll be seeing a clip of me freehanding a snowflake. I didn't film much of this because I wanted to focus more on the characters, but I basically just used the same technique and a toothpick to shape the snowflake. To fill in Sven's nose, I just used like a tan brown color that I kind of mixed together, and then just coloring that in once again. Now I'm going to add a little bit of shadow underneath Olaf's mouth where his teeth are, just to give a little more definition. And you'll see I play around with this a lot because I don't like how dark it came out, so I blend a little bit of white into that. And again, I'm just using a toothpick to shape it. Next, I'm going to go in with a little bit of white royal icing on a paintbrush, and you'll see me putting that on his nose to add a little bit of a snow effect. Now I'm just going to dab on 2 black dots onto his eyes and shape that with a toothpick. And with a little bit of black royal icing on the side and a paintbrush, I'm going to just outline his eyes in black. I start off with a toothpick, but later on I just go on to using a paintbrush because it's a lot easier. I also used the paintbrush to add in Olaf's eyebrows and a little bit more definition in his teeth. So now I'm putting Sven's eyes on and a little bit of shadow on his nose with a paintbrush again. To get a little bit better of an idea of the shadows and highlights on Sven, I am looking at a picture on my computer. You can't see that in the frame, but I'm just using it as a reference. Now I'm just painting on his eyebrows. I put a little bit of royal icing on the side to give myself easier access with the paintbrush. So now you'll see me going in with the paintbrush and just dabbing on some dark brown royal icing and different colors just to give it more of a texture to the fur. So you're basically just going to dab this on almost like sponge painting. Using that same royal blue icing as before, I'm making the background for Olaf and Sven. I'm making a full circle for Olaf's background. And while the background is still wet, you want to peel Olaf off the wax paper very carefully and place them in the middle of the circle. Try to make these circles as perfect of a circle as possible. That's why I drew a circle below, because this is what's going to be going on your cupcake. So for Sven's background, I have half blue and half white because he's going to be laying on snow. Just adding on some snowflakes, and the bottom part is in white. So again, while that's still wet, you're going to peel Sven off very carefully and place them on top of the wet icing. This will get him to stick right on there. As you can see, he broke off a little bit, but that's easy to fix. I'm just going to take the piece that broke and kind of place it right next to where it's supposed to be and use a little bit of icing and a paintbrush to just fill in the gap. Like I said earlier, his legs also broke off, so I would leave his legs to this part to draw on. After letting these dry completely overnight, you could peel them off, and now I'm going to just be adding on the final details. So I lined up Olaf's arms with the bottom disc, and I'm just creating his arms again with the brown royal icing and a toothpick to shape his fingers. I'm also mixing in a little white icing again to make it look like snow. Using that same brown royal icing, I'm going to use a paintbrush just to draw the lines of his hair, since they are very thin branches on his head. Now that Olaf is complete, I'm just going back in and recreating Sven's legs. And I would definitely suggest to hold this off until this moment to make his legs, because they did break off so easily. Here I'm just mixing a tan color, gray, and white together just for the detailing of his antlers. For a base color, I'm going to be piping on some white royal icing, and I'm just freehanding that with looking at that picture on my computer as a guide. Now going in with a toothpick in that color I mixed, I'm just going to be swirling in the color to add that last bit of detail. And that's all there is to it. So now you're just going to peel those off and put them right on top of your cupcakes. And you have your Olaf and Sven cupcakes. For more information on royal icing transfers, you could visit josiescupcakes.com. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below and I'll be sure to answer. Please subscribe for more videos we'll be posting weekly, and there you have your Olaf and Sven cupcakes. Our last frozen cupcake video will be ombre mini cake with a frozen themed color palette, and we'll be posting that soon. Thanks for watching!